All right, so welcome to the first official geography event. My name is Dr. Robin Lovell. I'm in the sociology department, but I am a geographer here at Manhattan College. And I was hired to start a geography program, and that is exactly what I did. Just really quick, very blatant product placement here. So geography is an interdisciplinary program. It consists of both human geography, which is kind of like anthropology or sociology. It's the study of how people interact with their environment. And it also includes physical geography, which a few folks here maybe have taken. It's a class I teach called Geographic Information Systems. It's a software that allows you to make maps and other great visualizations. So bold product placement. Please contact me if you're interested at all in minoring or even just taking one of the geography courses that we offer. And I'd be happy to chat with any student or professor about that. Okay, so today we have an exciting event. Another bold placement of some sort of product. Please, anyone who is attending that is a student or faculty of any kind, can you please go ahead and click on that attendance sheet that Dana has posted in the chat to make sure we capture who actually comes. And if there's any sort of follow-up or any sort of question follow-up, we can get in contact with you if we need to. Okay, great. So without further ado, our two guests today are wonderful people and very interesting stories as far as the blockchain and cryptocurrency world go. So Blake works at she graduated in 2018 with a master's degree in art history from the University of British Columbia, which is in Vancouver. And she produced the first academic thesis on crypto art. So she really tailored her innovative research to understand how cryptocurrency, as well as blockchain technology, can be applied to the sales and production of art. Currently, she's working at an investment firm that specializes in supporting emerging technologies. And she also has done a lot of wonderful writing and lecturing at universities, talking about this intersection of art, cryptocurrency, and blockchain technology. Claire is a product manager at Gemini, which is a cryptocurrency exchange. She received her bachelor's in anthropology from SUNY Purchase and is currently an MBA student at Manhattan College. She's been working in blockchain and cryptocurrency for about 5 years at various crypto wallets, as well as just regular old payment software companies. So you can see that they both come from pretty, I would say, non-traditional finance backgrounds. And they've both been, again, featured in lots of articles.
Okay.
I'm sorry, someone may, there we go. Okay, so they've both been featured in lots of great articles, and they've both also written their own original pieces about blockchain and about crypto and how to use it in sort of innovative ways. So we are going to have them each kind of tell us their story, their professional story, how they came into being in the blockchain space. And then we're gonna talk a little bit more about a few key topics that I think most people here might ask about. And then we'll open it up to Q&A in case we didn't cover something that interests you. Okay, so without further ado, I'm gonna let Blake take it away and tell us your story.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Lovell. I really appreciate you inviting me and everyone for coming. So essentially, in terms of my story with crypto and blockchain, I'm an art historian by training. And when I was doing my undergrad, I did a lot of like social media marketing jobs when I was going through school. And Vancouver, actually, it was the first place to have a Bitcoin ATM. It's kind of one of the world leaders at the beginning in terms of the crypto movement. So one of the companies I worked for, he was kind of an original crypto millionaire in 2012, 2013-ish, and he paid me in crypto. He paid me in Bitcoin. Sold it all, unfortunately, but before everything really took off. But so I actually got introduced to it in 2014, and I found it, and this was when I was still studying art history, I found it super overwhelming. I found it really, really confusing in terms of deeply and profoundly abstract in terms of the technology and how to store it safely and what it actually meant and how to convert it into money. But that was kind of my summer job, and that's how I initially got introduced to it. And I kind of didn't think anything of it after I went back to school in 2015, or in the September of 2014. And then then 2017 came around. It was kind of still in the back of my mind, and I was always writing about in my art history practice, in my writing, in my academic practice, about the intersection of technology and art. That was always what I was most interested in. So I was interested in technology, just not so emerging in the fact that it was, you know, this new kind of internet money, and I still wasn't there in terms of being really comfortable engaging with it. And then 2017 came around, and I was in the second year of my master's program, or studying art history, and I was still studying the intersection of tech and art. And that was when the big run, and Bitcoin had went over $10,000 for the first time, $10,000 American, because it had kind of moved into the $10,000. It had passed the $10,000 Canadian mark maybe a little bit before that, and I just it was just kind of, I went to a conference, a crypto conference, because it sparked my imagination a bit more. And I really just fell in love with it, and I really got it at this conference. It just kind of clicked for me that this was something, even if it didn't work, even if it was something that was gonna fail in the future, whatever, that studying it and engaging in crypto, I was going to be on the forefront of tech, because it is pushing the limits at all times with the minds involved, and with the theories, with the ideas that intersect with crypto. And at that point, being in my second year of my MA program in art, I was like, okay, how do I write about this? How do I make this my thesis project? And how do I basically make it work for me? So I kind of took, in a sense, an entrepreneurial approach to my education in that way. And I kind of started to look at how crypto and art intersected and how it worked together. And I kind of went to my thesis advisor and said, hey, there's this crypto art movement. It's really new. There's not much going on with it, but I think that it deserves to be written about, and art history kind of needs something to make it relevant and keep it also on the cutting edge. So she agreed to let me write about it. And from that point on, I kind of just taught myself everything about crypto. So every day I would listen to probably 3 or 4 podcasts. I would read books, and it was really trial and error, not only on the crypto art side of things and learning from an academic standpoint and how I can bring in different theories and historicize things and bring things back to art historical movements in the past and link everything together, but also the actual technology, putting in really, really small amounts of money to learn how to store things securely, learn how the actual tech work as much as I was able to, because I don't have a technical background. I have a liberal arts background. So yeah, it was a process of kind of a really, really intense process of a year and a half of teaching myself the technology, and also trying to make reference points and historicize things that had never been actually connected before. So that's kind of my story in crypto, and how I moved into more of the actual maybe classical finance side of things now that I work at a private equity firm, investment banking. In the investment banking sector is actually, when I published my thesis, there wasn't a lot of there wasn't a lot of work on it. So certain professors, certain people reached out to me because they wanted to learn more about crypto art. And my boss now actually found my work and reached out to me and wanted me to start writing about crypto, and kind of engaging in the emerging tech sector for him and looking at companies because of my ideas in the cryptocurrency space. So yeah.
That is quite a story. Thank you so much. And I think that really, you and Claire really dovetail well. I've heard similar types of themes in her story. So why don't we jump over to Claire? Why don't you tell us your story? And I think you have a PowerPoint to share as well.
Yes, mostly so I can share an embarrassing photo of myself for everyone. Okay, can you see it? Okay, cool. So yeah, sorry, back a slide by accident here. So I'm Claire Lovell. I'm the Associate Director of Product at Gemini. I've been working at Gemini for 1 year as of today, actually. And as Robin said, I am a Manhattan College MBA student as well, expected graduation of next year. So yeah, so for college, I went to SUNY Purchase, which is in Westchester, so a little north of Manhattan, and I studied anthropology. Here's my embarrassing photo as promised. This is me, I'm probably like 18 years old here as an RA in my single room, which was very small, as you can see. And, you know, at the time when I was in college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was very interested in social justice work, which is one of the reasons I studied anthropology. I saw a lot of potential for, you know, getting involved in, you know, maybe nonprofit works or other sort of, you know, social justice work. And at the time, I had a very long career working in a box office, which is a job I started in high school. So box office, you know, we sell tickets basically, but I worked at a bunch of different art institutions, classical music festival, a science museum, a museum about Da Vinci, just a lot of different places. And I had this career for about 10 years and I got laid off in 2008. And I thought, what am I going to do? You know, this is, everyone was laid off at this point, right? In 2008, not a great year to be looking for a job. And then the box office world was kind of, everything was going online. So didn't really seem like there was going to be a long-term future working in a box office for me. And, you know, I was pretty young at the time, 24 or something like that. So I decided to kind of expand my options and keep looking, and ended up getting a job at a ticketing startup. And so that was in 2010, I got that job at a company called Bandini, which has since been acquired. So it doesn't exist anymore. But that job let me break into the world of startups. So I moved to San Francisco, started getting introduced to people who worked in startups, and learned a ton. So my first role there was basically customer service because I had all this ticketing expertise. And pretty quickly after joining, everyone realized that I knew a ton about ticketing because I had worked in box offices for 10 years. So they ended up letting me weigh in on some of the product stuff. So at a typical startup, product managers really work on what are the products we're going to build that are going to build the most value for the firm, that are going to you know, solve problems for customers and help the company keep moving forward and, you know, generating revenue, obviously. So from that experience, I was able to work my way up to product manager. And, you know, at the time I was working at Bandini, a friend told me that she designed a logo for a coin called Dogecoin, which you may not have heard of, but basically was a copy of Bitcoin that was pretty much a meme or a joke. And it's based on the Doge meme. And so she designed this logo and it kind of interested me. What's that all about? What's Bitcoin all about? So I started hearing more about it and didn't really take it very seriously at the time. There also wasn't really a way to buy Bitcoin very easily. So I didn't really even know how to participate. I had learned a lot of tech working in a startup at that point for a couple of years, but you know, I wasn't a programmer or anything like that. So ended up, as I kept, working my way up as a product manager and getting new jobs, I would keep hearing about it every so often. Probably in 2014 or so, I decided to kind of put some time into researching it. And I started to understand that Bitcoin, which was really the only crypto at the time, there's a lot more now, it really is a tool for financial empowerment. And given my longstanding interest in social justice work, it really aligned to my personal interests. And I just saw so much opportunity in the space to help disempowered people have more access to financial services, whether that's people in developing countries or people here, even in the US, there's lots of people who don't have access to capital if they want to start a business, for example, which is like a very common problem you see in Silicon Valley, where I used to work. So, got really excited about it. And there was a company local to me. I lived in Santa Cruz, California at the time. They were doing payment processing, normal like cash, check, credit card stuff for businesses, but they also took Bitcoin for businesses. So I kind of wrote them a cold email and I said, hey, I'm really excited about what you're doing. I have some customer service background, also have some product work. I really want to be a product manager. I think you should take a chance on me. And they actually did. So I got lucky. They hired me and it ended up being a great job. I learned tons about payments, which is the original use case for Bitcoin was intended to be for payments. We could talk about that later, why that hasn't necessarily come to fruition today. But yeah, just learned a lot about traditional payments, learned a lot about Bitcoin as a payment method, and got a lot of great experience. Then I moved back to New York, which is where I'm from, and ended up getting a job at a company called BRD, which was the first wallet on the App Store. For those of you who don't know, a wallet is how you can actually store your cryptocurrency that you purchase. Just like you have a wallet for your cash, you can have a wallet for your digital currencies as well. Worked there and then got recruited by Gemini. And so Gemini is one of the major United States exchanges. It's owned by the Winklevoss twins, who are famous for helping invent Facebook. And they had a lawsuit with Mark Zuckerberg over their intellectual property and got about $50 million in Facebook stock, which they used to purchase 1% of all Bitcoin that existed at the time. And they became billionaires because the price of Bitcoin went up quite a lot between 2011 and today. And they took that money and they started Gemini, which is a cryptocurrency exchange, as Robin said. So basically, it's a way for people to actually buy cryptocurrency. If you want to go get $50 worth of Bitcoin, you can go to Gemini, give us your dollars, we'll give you some Bitcoin. There's more to it than that, but that's kind of the high level version. So once I got that job, or as I was kind of transitioning away from BRD, I realized that for me to keep growing my career, everything was kind of pointing me towards finance, which is a background that I don't have at all. So decided to pursue my MBA with a concentration in finance and economics so that I could have that grounding and backing to help kind of bring our products to the next level. So it's been really great to have all of that. I'm pretty senior in my career. I lead a team actually lead all of our retail consumer products at Gemini. So any products that regular people use, that's under my purview. And then there's other departments who handle things like institutional products, for example, which would be asset managers or hedge funds or firms such as that. So yeah, we work on the mobile app, the trading experience, really kind of long term. We're probably going to many of the services you get from your bank today, lending, borrowing money from the bank to maybe buy a car or a house, earning interest on your savings. Those are kind of long-term, I think, the vision for not only for Gemini, but most crypto companies, as an exchange. We see ourselves as a way of kind of removing the middleman of the bank who charges you a bunch of money, and instead, let people kind of control their access to these services themselves. We also have an app that lets you make payments with cryptocurrency. So if you have some cryptocurrency accumulated and you want to go pay for something in a store with it, we have an app called Gemini Pay that lets you do that. That's another thing that I've built there. And then funnily enough, we also have a product which sells cryptocurrency, art on the blockchain, also known as NFTs, or non-fungible tokens. So there's a good synergy there, and that company is called Nifty Gateway, and I advise them as well. So basically they have all of these creators who make art, and they'll only make a certain number of copies of this art, as opposed to like a picture online that you can download and share freely. Because this is on the blockchain, you know, there's only a few copies of it. And so because of the rarity, each piece of art actually has value and can be traded just as a piece of art in the real world would be. So at a time when there is very low interest rates, it's a good time to be trading alternative assets like cryptocurrency, like tokenized art. And then, yeah, since I've been at Gemini, I have, or even really the last few years, I've had the opportunity to participate in a number of panels and write some articles and things like that about my views on crypto in general, which has been great. And you guys can feel free to check out my website if you want to read any of that stuff. And yeah, I just want to provide my contact information as well in case anyone has any questions. But I think that's pretty much my story of how I got into crypto.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much. And I definitely see the, you know, the synergy there in sort of crypto and art and investing in general. For those of you who are on the call who have like no idea what the blockchain is even about, I sort of wanted, if Blake and Claire, if you could take like 1 or 2 sentences and just describe what the blockchain is in your own words, so that people can start to think about it, not just in the case of like Bitcoin and finance and investing, but also in terms of other things. So I'm not sure if maybe Claire, if you wouldn't mind going first,
Sure.
And then Blake, will give you a couple minutes to think about that.
So, sorry, just like explaining. Yeah, I would say the easiest explanation is that it's digital cash for the internet. You know, just like today, if I want to, you know, pay you to, I'm going to sell my couch to you, you're going to give me $20, right? A bank doesn't need to be involved in that transaction, but it does need to happen in person because it's not digital. So cryptocurrencies, you know, in kind of the original, most basic use case, allows people to trade things like that in a digital way without needing that centralized third party like a bank. So it costs less money, money moves faster, all those good things.
Okay. And Blake,
Yeah.
if you could also talk about, yeah, just like how is crypto maybe different than the blockchain?
Totally. Yeah. So I guess what I would say in regards to maybe what the blockchain is, or the easiest way that I conceptualize it or started to engage with it, is that it's a database. That's what the blockchain is. It's a basically a digital database. It's often called a ledger. So whatever moves on top of a blockchain, be it cryptocurrency or other types of tokens that don't necessarily represent money, that's all tracked permanently. And so I like to think of the blockchain as a database in which cryptocurrency sits on top of. And when it moves from location to location, that's permanently tracked and can be referenced at any time by someone.
Love it. Yeah, that's perfect. So I've heard it also described as like a giant spreadsheet in the sky, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, it's like, imagine that you have a Google sheet and you've shared it with the entire world, right? And so everybody can see it. Not everybody can alter it though, right? It's for sort of viewing purposes only. And if something happens on it, nobody can kind of hack the blockchain and change what happened, right?
Totally. That's what I would say.
Awesome.
As well. Perfect.
Okay, good. So that's just for those folks who are maybe brand new to blockchain ideas. That's the reason that sort of having art traded on the blockchain or you know, other things is important. It's a non-hackable, transparent, giant spreadsheet in the sky. Awesome. So as far as cryptocurrency, all of these different kind of like currencies going on, right? There's Bitcoin, but then there's a bunch of other ones. How are those similar to stocks, and how are those different from stocks? If you guys could both kind of weigh in on that, that would be awesome.
Well, I guess in a certain sense, you know, I don't want to get like esoteric or anything, but currency itself, whether it's the American dollar or the Canadian dollar or the euro, those are investable assets just the same. Like you can think of those as something you invest in, not only spend, but they are assets that people invest in. So in that sense, Bitcoin, if we conceptualize it or understand it as a currency, you can treat it as in the same way as an American dollar or Canadian dollar, as an investable asset, as a commodity to buy and sell and hold. In terms of the relationship, I guess the classic way that we understand stocks, if they're traded on a stock exchange and they represent companies or corporations. I mean, I think that I don't necessarily, the thing that makes, I think, crypto much more complicated is the digital side of things, and the fact that it is oftentimes, if you're not doing it safely, it is really easy to lose or misplace your cryptocurrency, which then means that you're out of money just because you can't. There's technical aspects that I think to invest safely in cryptocurrencies really need and are really important to do, like doing it through a respected exchange like Gemini, you know. So I think there's a lot of, maybe there's certain risks that investing in cryptocurrencies pose, that specifically ones that aren't necessarily the big ones, that aren't going to be on an exchange like Gemini. And so I think that there can be some complications there if you don't know how to store your crypto securely and you're not using a secure exchange. I think that is one of the major differences that yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Blake. Thank you for bringing that up. And I know, Claire, that Gemini focuses so very highly on security and risk. And I'm wondering if you can add to Blake's response and maybe also talk a little bit about that risk and how you guys mitigate it there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as an exchange that also works with institutional clients, we have to be very careful about what we list. You know, we are very highly regulatory compliant, which not everyone in crypto can say. So we're regulated by the Department of Financial Services in New York State, which means that every time we list a new cryptocurrency, that's a regulatory body that has to approve it. So certain cryptocurrencies that are treated more as securities rather than you know, a method of value exchange like Bitcoin, we are legally not allowed to list those, right? And so I think you get into those situations like Blake has talked about, where maybe you acquire crypto, maybe a friend sends you some, let's say, right? Can you store that on Gemini? Unfortunately, no, you can't, because it wouldn't be a one that we would support. So how are you able to store that? You know, so a big part of the service we offer is for the cryptocurrencies we support, and it's about 20 or 30 or so at this point. We can store them for you safely. You know, we can allow you can exchange dollars for the crypto. You can also exchange crypto for dollars. If you bought it at, you know, some price, it's gone up, you want to sell it and take those dollars out and put them in your regular bank account, you can certainly do that as well. You can hold it long term, you can spend some of it, like I mentioned. But I think, you know, the main difference for people from like a investment perspective is that it's, for many people, it's considered a hedge against the stock market, right? If the stock market is doing bad, if we have another situation like earlier this year or 2008, where there was like a long protracted recession where most stocks went down over time and people were nearing retirement, a lot of people lost a lot of money, and it's really hard for individuals, not just for big corporations, to have that stock value go down, because nowadays most people hold their retirement accounts in 401ks. So, if you maybe don't put your life savings in it, right? But if you have maybe 5 or 10% of your net worth long term in crypto, crypto often does well when the stock market is not doing well, and vice versa. And there's more volatility, so you wouldn't want to, your returns are not as predictable, which is why you wouldn't want to put all of your money necessarily in crypto. But it doesn't really hurt to diversify your, kind of retirement or long-term savings plans. And for a lot of people who happen to time things well, which is very difficult to do, obviously, crypto kind of over the long haul does kind of go up and to the right. So if you buy some, you hold on to it, you're all students, so you're relatively young, you have time, you can wait to sell it until the price is pretty good. And, maybe you have money for a down payment for your house or something. So, it's very hard in today's economy to get high yield return many other places. So that's another aspect, with a stock, you own a piece of a company. That's not true of Bitcoin, but you do actually own money that you can earn interest on on various platforms. So I think that's another short-term way that it's a little bit different than stocks.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for those insightful answers, and direct, you guys both have direct, lots of experience with the investing side of things. So I've asked folks in the chat, if you have questions for the speakers, you can feel free to type them in, and I can ask the speakers for you. Or if you would like to sort of digitally raise your hand using Zoom, I can also call on you in order in that way. But I do have a couple of, oh, and also just a reminder, can everyone please fill out the attendance Google Doc that's in the chat as well. I do have a couple more little questions, and sort of the reason that this event has been co-sponsored by LWGRC and Geography and all sorts of wonderful sponsors across campus, is that blockchain and sort of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency more specifically has this potential to kind of be a great equalizer, right? So there are fewer barriers to entry, although some might argue that there are maybe more barriers depending on who you are. Can you guys both talk about how crypto or blockchain more broadly has the potential to empower women or minorities or those who have been sort of systematically excluded from the financial benefits of major institutions like banks in the past? So I'm sure you both have very maybe similar, maybe different takes on that, and I'd love to hear both of your thoughts. Sorry, maybe if Blake could go first.
Yeah, I think there's extraordinary opportunity for sure. I see it as something where, because, as Claire was mentioning, it has the opportunity to remove intermediaries, i.e. banks and larger kind of governmental institutions that oftentimes are deeply exclusionary to women, people of color, lower income people, and all the intersections in between around who's excluded from getting loans, who's excluded from actually participating in the financial system, even opening a bank account. So obviously you need a certain amount of money to open a bank account in North America. And there's fees you need to pay. There's identification you need to have around where you live and that you have an address and all these things. And actually, if you're engaging directly in cryptocurrency, then those barriers, depending on how you're engaging, they're not there. So I think in that way also actually, and this is a big kind of one of at least originally, one of the, I'd say, main arguments, or one of the loudest arguments about the upsides of cryptocurrency is actually remittances. So sending money, so I don't know if any of you have sent a wire, but they can be absolutely disastrous if you're sending them cross-border, the fees around wires, and through actually, and they also demand you to have a bank account. And if you're sending remittances, if you're working in America, if you're working in Canada, and your family lives in a different part of the world, maybe they don't have a bank account, maybe they don't have access to a bank where they're living. But if you have internet access, if you have a phone, then you can send them basically instantly cryptocurrency. And if they have a smartphone, then they can receive that right away. They don't need to go through a bank. So I think there's lots of opportunities there in terms of the I don't know, maybe transfer of wealth is a really big term, but the way to send and receive money, which I think just opens up a lot of people that haven't had that before. Obviously, on the other side, as you all know, being people that are really engaged in going to university, there's major barriers around technology access. And if you look at kind of the big players in crypto, at least oftentimes from a North American standpoint, they do kind of all look the same. A lot of the times they're all the tech bro, the kind of Silicon Valley white male, or really highly educated privileged white female. So I think there are extreme barriers to access to technology, and and internet access, even when you look at different parts of the world, and infrastructure to have really strong internet connections. So as much as there is, I think, major opportunities, there's always, I think, important to acknowledge that who's designing the technology, who's working on the technology, and those people who are the architects of everything, and the people that are installing the infrastructure and running the infrastructure, those are the same people in power that seem to always be in power. So I think there's lots of ways to subvert and engage on the sort of bottom up, but there's still those barriers to access, but there's lots of excitement within that to work around it, I would say.
Love it. Thank you so much. And Claire, what are your thoughts? How can this be a great equalizer or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to acknowledge the reality, of crypto today is, just as Blake said, yes, it's very white, male, millennial, probably lives on the coast. That's definitely like the typical profile of someone who invests in cryptocurrency. But there's not actually any barriers to anyone here or anywhere really in the world investing in cryptocurrency from any sort of like operational, legal, technical perspective. Like, of course, yes, you need access to the internet, you need access to a mobile device, something like that. But, if I want to go to open up a stock trading account, right, just as Blake said, right, I have to pass my KYC, which means, in the United States, there's like all this information you need to provide. You need a social security number, you need IDs, etc. You need a certain minimum balance. You can use things as easy as an ATM, like Blake mentioned before. I can put my $5, I can put that in an ATM and have $5 worth of Bitcoin held in a wallet, and I can send that anywhere around the world, in seconds for very little money. So that empowerment and access, I think, is really important to long-term getting different types of people to engage with the financial system. Another phenomenon that's been happening now lately is called decentralized finance, or DeFi, which is really about giving people direct access to services they normally get from a bank. So, banks typically, they take your money, they lend it out to other people, you get a little bit of interest. Sorry. But so, you can lend your money out directly to institutions or other people. And and get that interest directly. And, you know, it's highly liquid. You can trade it out at any time. You don't have to worry about bank fees. You know, you can kind of decide the risk profile you're comfortable with. If you want to be more aggressive on your risk and earn more interest, you have those opportunities available to you. But I think the other like major thing we haven't talked about is privacy, because one of the main features of cryptocurrency is that it's completely private, because there isn't that centralized party like a bank. And with lots of government regulation. There is some regulation, but every wallet is anonymous. Your identity is not tied to your wallet. So everything you do, you know, whereas we live in a world, right, where I search something on Google and then I buy something on Amazon, all of that is tracked. It's attached to my identity. It's attached to my credit card. You know, my credit card company is probably selling my data to multiple other companies. You know, with cryptocurrency, I can go and buy whatever I want, and I don't necessarily need to advertise that to the world. And so that privacy gives people a lot of opportunity. You know, if you want to get out of, let's say you're in like a domestic violence situation, you want to be able to amass some funds to get out of that situation, right? You could do that in a completely private way. You know, so I think there's all this potential that, you know, today we haven't realized, because cryptocurrency is still pretty confusing for the average person. But as we kind of make it easier to use with more and more tools that have been built over the last few years, I see that changing over the long run.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, we have some great questions coming in. So I think I'm gonna talk a little bit about, there's some questions about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and sort of the technology, and then there's some questions about career stuff. So I'm going to kind of maybe stick with, I'm going to stick with the Bitcoin questions first, and then we'll move over to career stuff, because I think they're both super valuable and I kind of want to keep them in our minds. So the first question is, has cryptocurrency, or Bitcoin specifically, has it been affected by the pandemic? And if so, how has it been affected?
Probably I have more perspective just because of, you know, what we do with institutions and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I would say that like for a lot of people, they've been a lot of institutions are entering the space because the stock market has been acting kind of crazy lately, and people see it as a way to hedge their bets, as a way to diversify their portfolio, mitigate their risk in investing. So that's been really exciting. There's literally been like 4 or 5 companies in the last like week or two that have said that they've invested, you know, $50 million in Bitcoin here, $1 billion here, like massive amounts of money. So that's really exciting. On the retail side, the consumer side that I work on, you know, you can tell because the price has been going up. There has just been more action in the market. People are excited about it. It's very common for people to turn to Bitcoin in times of a recession. And that's actually how and when it was invented, was in the 2008 crisis initially. So I think people are kind of feeling that and, you know, getting excited about it again, especially because there's those opportunities to earn some money that you can't really earn in the traditional finance system today. So I think overall it's been pretty beneficial to the market, but I could say all that today and tomorrow the price could be totally different. So you don't really know. But yeah, I think personally, I think, you know, we're driving up to a bull market at this point, and I expect to see a lot more action, you know, in the coming months and year probably.
Excellent. All right. And on that same note, someone asked, or Ashley is asking, I heard a lot of good things about cryptocurrency XRP or Ripple. Do you feel that this would be like the next upcoming Bitcoin?
I will just say, no, I don't believe that to be true at all. You know, XRP is essentially a security, which is why we don't list it at Gemini. You know, the idea behind Ripple is cross-border remittance, which is a very exciting use case for cryptocurrency in general. I don't personally think that Ripple has really realized that dream. You know, that's kind of the idea, but mostly their business is selling the Ripple token, which is, you know, highly speculative and it's not really providing a lot of value for customers. So, yeah, my personal opinion is no, I don't think so. But Blake, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
I don't at all. I 100% agree. I 100% agree. Yeah, that's all. I'm with.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of potential for Ripple. We won't push them out of the running yet, but maybe they haven't realized that return yet. Okay. One more question about sort of blockchain technology. Margaret asks, what industries do you think would benefit from crypto or blockchain more generally? I know food sourcing has many benefits using blockchain, and you both talked about art. Are there any others?
Sorry, I don't mean to be always the one talking here. Faster on the unmute. Yeah, you know, anything that a bank can do today, you know, that's kind of like the easy thing to think about crypto being a part of. But long term, you know, the part of like blockchain in general allows people to decentralize things as opposed to centralize things. So when you think about a company like Uber, right? They're connecting riders and drivers, but they're not actually providing that service themselves. So that's Uber is the central entity there. And the drivers and the riders pay a little bit of money to Uber to facilitate that. So what if rather than having Uber facilitate that, we used a smart contract, which is a way of basically using the blockchain to match up, you know, riders and drivers and help them exchange their funds for a ride. So that's just one example, but I think there's tons of use cases where we have like very unnecessary middlemen who, as we say, are rent seeking, meaning they take a lot of fees from you as consumers. So, you know, long term, we can potentially eliminate a lot of those middlemen and then have greater efficiency in the market. You know, the people providing the service will get more, the consumers will pay less for the service, you know, so the consumer, the market in general will be healthier for services like that, where we can have those possibilities. But I'm sure Blake has some very different perspective to add.
I 100% agree with Claire on all of that as well. And I think to what has come up, and Claire mentioned it previously, was this, it's kind of the new phenomenon in crypto, which is decentralized finance and taking those services that a bank would do that now we don't have to rely on a bank to do. There's lots of glitches. Everything's still kind of in development with DeFi as they call it. But I think the idea of taking out loans and collateralizing your crypto, meaning that you put your crypto up to then take out a loan, which is a kind of function of DeFi, of decentralized finance. I think that's really exciting, again, in the idea of opening up more opportunities for people who might not be able to get a loan at a bank, and kind of, again, that microfinancing piece that has really, it's a barrier to entry for a lot of people. So I think that's really exciting. I also think really in terms of the industries that can use crypto, looking at things with databases and keeping track. So, you know, food is a really big industry where that's happening, but anything with supply chains, where that's a real central piece, I think that's a space where there's lots of opportunity for just tracking in a way that's automatic, and it can cut out maybe, again, a lot of the middlemen.
That's a fantastic answer. And just to add to that, you know, I think there's kind of this blockchain craze going on, like, oh, how can we use the blockchain for like literally everything? And I think it's good to take a step back and kind of evaluate, like, well, do we need to track this? Why are we tracking this? Is this a social justice issue? Is this a like legal compliance issue? And then from there, if the answers are yes, you need to track it, then going into blockchain. Because I think there's a lot of, yeah, just like a craze going on essentially. Okay.
Sorry, can I just add one quick thing on that?
Please.
No, yeah. I think the thing that people forget about the blockchain is it's anonymous, but it's public, right? So for businesses that want to keep all their data private, it is not an appropriate solution. So you need to have a solution where you need a database that is publicly verifiable, because that's the only way that this, spreadsheet in the sky actually works without a centralized third party, is anyone can verify that transactions actually happen. So it needs to be public yet anonymous, and verifiable by a third party. Those are kind of the ideal use cases that you want to put on the blockchain.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so switching a little bit to like career and that sort of thing. We only have about 10 minutes left, but Heidi asked, I would love to hear more about what it was like for both of you moving into new technical areas of work and or research, ones that you didn't have previous experience with. Was it intimidating at first? And if so, how did you push past that? So Blake, would you mind speaking to this first?
Sure, it was really intimidating, for sure it was. The learning curve has been more of a straight line up as opposed to a friendly curve up. So yeah, it's been it's a whole new thing working in investment banking, which is not mostly men, which is all men in Vancouver where I am. So yeah, it's been very, very intense. I really love it, and I see that there's so many opportunities for me, because I see there's need to open up to different people and different identities that are not represented in the finance world where I am. And how I adjusted kind of was that I really was clear in myself that this is where I wanted to be. So I tried to remove any type of resistance or unsureness, being unsure. And then working at being really clear in my intentions and goals, and not being trying to be as unself-conscious as possible with asking questions, and not doing everything perfectly, and really having to commit to maybe working a bit longer or taking more time to learn on my own, which is the same thing that I did with crypto. So kind of taking those principles of teaching myself and being really okay with that, and not always being perfect, or not knowing everything at the beginning, and taking my time to learn on my own and asking as many questions as possible.
Yeah, I would say that people kind of like self-select, like this is too confusing, I can't do it. But like, you have to remember that this was only invented in 2008. Like, no one knows what they're talking about. We're all learning. No one got their master's degree in Bitcoin, right? So everyone who knows anything about this space has just read a bunch of stuff on the internet, or maybe watched some videos or talked to some people on Twitter. That's a very, very normal path. So I think if you're excited about it, and this is kind of like the typical pattern I see people do, is they hear about it, they get interested in it, and you just kind of go down this like rabbit hole of researching, and you spend weekends or months, years, right, reading about this stuff. And so, you don't need to be a technical expert at all. You don't need to be a finance expert. Most of the time, white papers, they're written in English, you can read them. If you go Google the Bitcoin white paper, it's pretty digestible, in my opinion. It explains, why do we want digital money? What are the use cases here? And so most new currencies, like whether that be Ripple or, Ethereum or any of these other ones, right? They also publish a white paper. They're easily findable. You can read those. There's tons of news sites where you can read. So there's just so much like free research out there that you can get. It's not an expensive textbook you have to buy or anything. So I really encourage people to just go out and do that for themselves, and not think, oh, I can't do this because I'm not, an engineer or something. I'm not a coder either. And I figured it out to the point where I was recruited by Gemini, right? So I think even spending a couple years thinking about this stuff puts you in like probably the top 1% of people who know about crypto, because it's still such a nascent growing industry at this stage.
Yes. So don't be intimidated by a very male-dominated sort of historic power structure. Go for it, do your research, and jump in, and don't be afraid. I love that, being as unself-conscious as possible. Just jump in, know that you're a smart person and that you can keep up. Okay, there's one final question. This one's for Claire. Do you find getting your MBA now, after working and gaining lots of experience, more beneficial since you can now apply all that knowledge, or do you wish that it was something that you'd done sooner?
Yeah, I think definitely find it so much more useful having lots of work experience. I think I would have, I just wouldn't have understood what they were talking about probably to some extent. And also it's so satisfying to go work really hard for this knowledge, and be able to apply it, the next day, the next month at work. It's made me really more confident, it's made me better at my job in many ways. So yeah, I think maybe I could have done it a few years sooner just to help give me that finance background, a little earlier. But in general, I think, I'm so glad I had work experience going into it.
Wonderful. Well, we have a couple minutes left. If anyone has any questions that they would like to ask the speakers, feel free and unmute yourself and ask away. But otherwise, I just want to thank you guys. Thanks, Blake and Claire, for coming. And thank you, everyone else, for joining us for this fun discussion on crypto. One last plug to please fill out the attendance sheet. And thank you all for coming. I hope to see you at future geography and women in business events to come. Thank you all. Thanks for all the thank yous. All right.